Well, good evening, and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns, 10 to 15 minutes here on YouTube D-Live. My name is Tom Luongo, and we have a lot to talk about. It is Tuesday, 3 days before tax day, 2022. Yeah, so that's about to happen. Sorry about last week. Could not be avoided. Had people come in from out of town and decided that, communicating people with people in meat space was, just the thing to do. So that's what happened. And I love you all, but sorry, this is what happens. We've got a lot going on now, haven't we? So we'll be here on YouTube for about 15 minutes. For those of you who don't know, you can follow me on my work, on my blog at tomluongo.me. There are links down below to all the things. And we'll do a couple of opening remarks here, and then we'll move over to Odyssey, to my Odyssey channel. And I do not quite have the link yet. And when the link is live, I will. Oh, it is live. There we go. All right. So let's get the link. Let's put it in the chat. Here you go. And that's what's going on. So I hope you all have had at least a decent couple of weeks, given the fact that we're, steadily trending towards World War III, but it is what it is. The thing, right? Exactly. So I hope that it's been at least tolerable, and I hope that in some way, manner, shape, or form, being a member of this kind of disparate and, well, to be honest with you, interesting community has been at least somewhat of a comfort. I can tell you guys that I get a lot out of doing all of this. As much as the live streams are not as important to me as they once were, with the insane amount of media that I've done recently, I know this is the kind of unfiltered me that you all love, and that's why we do this. So, yeah, let's get started. So, I want to talk about regime change tonight. That's what's on my mind. I've got a blog post that I would have hit publish on about 10 minutes ago had I had a chance to actually edit it and what's the word I'm looking for, QC it before I send it out the door. But I didn't really have a chance to do that, so I need to read it over one more time before I send it out the door. And I'll probably put it out right after the stream is over later tonight. And it's all about regime change. And the thing about it is that I was thinking about this all day today, and this morning I'm like, well, I haven't written anything for a few days, so I really need to put something together. And obviously in the middle of doing my taxes and getting prepared to put together the April issue of the Gold Goats and Guns newsletter, which is in and of itself a monumental task, because there's 5,000, 6,000 words that need to be written for that, and then there's continuing to water the public space. So I was on with Marty Bent this afternoon over on his channel. It was great. We had a great time. We did almost 2 hours over there, and I just I forgot that. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do a live stream tonight, so I get to do even more talking into a microphone. So, and I just want to say that as we go forward here, it's been really kind of gratifying to watch the situation unfold here. Finally, we're beginning to, as a community, see our voice heard, at least through me and whatnot. And it's become really almost fun to meet new people, to talk to new people and whatnot. So today, while I was working on the post, I'm like, I'm gonna have to have a subject for the live stream tonight, so let's talk about regime change. So here we are. All right, I know I'm just kind of filibustering for a couple of minutes here. Okay, let's get started. We got about 10 minutes to do here on Odyssey, and then we're gonna move forward. So this has been the theme for the last couple of days. If you really go and look at what's happening, right? We had the French elections over the weekend, or the first round of the French elections over the weekend. We had the Hungarian elections 2 weeks ago, which turned out brilliantly for Viktor Orban and all people of common decency and conscience. And I wasn't overly excited about the results from Sunday and the French elections, because they went pretty much as the polls expected them to. There was no surprises, other than I think Jean-Luc Mélenchon really surging into the close. His support surging into the close, I think, was the most interesting part about that. But if you look at what's going on here, it's clear that the neocons here in the United States and in Europe are keen on overthrowing Vladimir Putin. They're, I think, beginning to rapidly come to the conclusion that that's not going to happen, that all of the sanctions and all of the economic hardship that they've tried to put on Russia and personally on Putin has not worked. If anything, Putin is even more popular now than he was when the war started. I saw a great segment today with Judge Andrew Napolitano and Colonel Douglas Macgregor, and Macgregor brought up the point that I hadn't heard anywhere else, which is that the Russians are seeing young people, sign up for the military to go fight in Ukraine for what they feel is a very important war. So, so there's no danger of Putin losing support over the potential hardship here. I'm not, sanguine about the idea that we're having, that we've gotten to this point. It's actually really quite sad that we're dealing with that. But, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a regime change in Russia. We did have regime change operation be successful for the first time in a while on the Americans' front. They finally got a win over in Pakistan. And yet, I look at that win and I have to wonder if it's a Pyrrhic victory, because I keep seeing just massive, massive protests from the Pakistani people for Khan having been overthrown. He's not popular within political circles, but he's certainly not, obviously, not unpopular with the Pakistani people. And I think he was smart to try and go for early elections and to subvert the no confidence vote, which was eventually struck down by the Supreme Court. I wonder how many people either had threats of leg breaking or how many envelopes full of cash were filtered about in order to make sure that that occurred, because it's very clear that with the global South almost completely not backing the West's play against Putin, that the amount of arm twisting that's going on from the U.S., the U.K., the European Union has been crazy and kind of almost off the charts. I mean, Biden is in India apparently, trying to figure out what he has to bribe Narendra Modi with, the prime minister over there, to get them to not back Putin. And it's really kind of sad, because if you think about this, the Indians have never gone along with the sanctioning of a major energy supplier to them. I mean, even back in 2012, when Obama made the first tremendously bad strategic decision to kick Iran out of the SWIFT system, then I noted back then, and I've talked about this here on the channel many, many times, that that the Indians were the ones who said, no, we're going to continue trading with Iran regardless of what goes on. If we have to get around sanctions, we'll trade. I've said before, we've traded soybeans and washing machines and not snowplows, but tractors and heavy machinery and whatnot for oil if necessary. There's plenty of things they can do in a barter sense to get around the sanctions and not have to use dollars in order for India to ensure that they have a stable supply of energy. Because look, India is one of the world's biggest energy importers, right next to the European Union and China, and they're all dependent upon, at a certain level, Russian or Russian oil. And not the Indians to a lesser extent, certainly, than either Europe or China, but the Indians are more than happy to buy oil and gas from the Russians. If there was a pipeline that would actually run down to India, they'd be happy to buy gas from the Russians if necessary and pay for it and if they can pay for it with their own local currency, with Indian rupees, as opposed to having to go get dollars on the open market, well, all the better. I mean, it's not like it's not like the Indian rupee is a great reserve currency, right? the same way that the Russian ruble isn't, at least as of right now. But this internationalization of the global oil trade is a big deal. And so, we had regime change in Pakistan, and now we got to ask yourselves the question, are they going to go for regime change in India? I sincerely doubt it. I don't think it's possible. But it's not like it's not, on the table, as it were. So, but if you really start to look at all of this, when we talk about sanctions blowback, right? From the moment the sanctions, nuclear weapons went off all across the West, the propaganda war was, oh, this is going to be bad for Putin. He's going to get overthrown, blah, blah, blah. And, I've stated multiple times and had multiple guests on my podcast to explain why that wasn't going to work. And then it didn't work. And now they're looking at the potential sanctions blowback from this, which is, how does Germany, for example, go along with the EU losing their mind and, on principle, we have to sanction the Russians. We have to punish them for their activities in Ukraine. Well, at the same time, the Germans are like, yeah, we need to go along with that, but we also want to buy oil from you, Putin. They're like, I just see Putin going, no, fuck you. Do the right thing. Stand up for yourself. Show some fucking dignity. And let's have let's transact like men. Of course, the Germans can't do that, or clearly cannot have been able to do that. And it just shows off the weakness of the regime over there. The traffic light coalition is a very weak coalition. And so, but even so, you have that. I'm seeing massive protests in Rome against Mario Draghi, desperately telling him to step down. They are now openly chanting, Draghi, go fuck yourself, or Draghi, fuck you. It's time to go away. I mean, the Italians are angry, and there's getting no play in the Western media. And the same thing is going on in France. If you look at the results in France, Emmanuel Macron is in a very, very difficult position. I think Alexander Mercouris put it best the other day in one of the voluminous videos that he and Alex Cristoforo do over at Iran, saying that this was a very brittle victory. I think that was Alex's term for this, brittle victory. It's interesting. He used that phrase. Because Macron got almost 28% of the vote. Le Pen got just shy of 24%, but Mélenchon got to almost 22%. And that's an enormous vote of no confidence against Emmanuel Macron. Now, the question is going to be, obviously, in 12 days, whether or not Mélenchon's voters are going to hold their nose and, vote for Le Pen, because they somehow apparently still believe in all these idiotic political labels of left versus right. Remember, of course, that it is the French who gave us the concept of left versus right in the first place. So it's still a very powerful motivator, the idea of, oh, I'm a left-wing voter, you're a right-wing voter, this is a right-wing candidate. I can't cross party lines. I can't cross the ideological divide here. And I'm just wondering, and that was Alex's analysis, saying, look, there's a tremendous opportunity here for France to free itself from that, false duality. But at the same time, don't get your hopes up, because, the French have always kind of will disappoint you when it comes to something like that. So I don't know. It's going to be very, very weird at this point. So, I mean, look, when we're talking about, French right-wingers, we're not talking about people who are actually right-wing, other than maybe Eric Zemmour. We're really talking about people who are, just to the right of Karl Marx or Bertolt Brecht, for fuck's sake. I mean, it's not like it's a, I mean, it's crazy. It's not like we're talking about, hardcore libertarian. These people are like hardcore nativist libertarians like myself. I mean, obviously, from their point of view, I'm as, far right as a person can possibly be. Or, a right-wing lunatic, as I've been called by people in the past. So, we don't have there's nobody in France that's staking out that perspective. Get rid of the government, get rid of taxes and all this shit. It's no. And, and Alex M also brought up a really good point, which is to say that Marine Le Pen has not proven herself to be a particularly strong leader, which is why she can't break through this kind of 23 to 25% threshold, because she's always willing to compromise at some level to try and move to the center to make herself more acceptable to a greater swath of French voters. Now, whether she does that just out of the sheer political reality of France, of trying to bridge that, label of left-right in France and trying to bridge that divide, which I don't think is the right course of action. But then again, I'm not French, so I don't know. But you never apologize to these people. You never compromise. You just state who you are and then do the thing. Now, Eric Zemmour ran that kind of campaign, and he wound up collapsing back down to just under 7%. So, it seems that from those results, a lot of these ideas still hold sway. In the United States, hardcore, third, fourth generation Republicans and Democrats, those people don't really exist anymore. The independent vote in the United States is almost a plurality at this point. If not, it is actually a plurality. Excuse me. So I don't know. It would be very interesting. So what we're seeing in the West, and I know I'm a little bit over time here, but that's okay. What we're seeing in the West is the kind of sanctions blowback where we went for regime change in Russia, and now we're getting potential regime change here in the United States. I mean, even we're now all talking about Biden getting dumped by the Democrats, possibly even before the midterms. I mean, Tucker Carlson ran this story the other night, right? So it's a very interesting situation when you start to really think about it. It's a very interesting situation. And it's an interesting dichotomy. We're going to talk about this more when we go over to Odyssey. Let's get the link into the chat one more time. There it is. And we'll go from there. So, I mean, that's what I have to say right now. We'll go over to Odyssey, and we'll do this with a little bit more invective and, slightly better music. And we'll see what we come up with. So, the upshoot of this is that it's moving us into a very, very fluid situation politically. And I think this is going to be one of the most interesting summers in recent memory for potential political earthquakes to occur all across the West as these kind of sclerotic political edifices, CDU in Germany, conservatives and Tories or Labor in Britain, the Democrats and Republicans here in the United States. Like, I think those ideas, those institutions, political institutions, are now, to use Alex Mercouris's term, very brittle and very fragile. And as inflation gets out of control, as people really start to feel the damage that's been done to the world, and I just don't think they're going to stand for it for very much longer. So, all right. So that's what I've got to say on that. Why don't we move over to Odyssey? I will talk to you guys soon. And for those of you who don't follow me over on Odyssey, well, come back next week and we'll be here. We'll do another 15 minutes. You guys be well. You take care. We'll talk soon. Stick on.